Union monsters are a special kind of monster that can, from the field, be equipped to other monsters to grant them additional effects and prevent their destruction. Some Union monsters like the ABC Pieces or the Squeaknights have been extremely good in the past, but these 10 cards got the short end of the stick. And at number 10, we have Zombie Tiger. Like all Union monsters, once per turn you can target a monster to equip it or unequip it in order to special summon the equipped monster, and a monster can only be equipped with one Union monster. Since all Union monsters have this effect, we'll be skipping it for the next ones for the sake of brevity. Zombie Tiger is a level 3 Earth zombie monster with an effect that makes it so when Zombie Tiger is equipped, it grants the effect where, if the monster it's equipped to destroys a monster by battle, you get to discard a random card from your opponent's hand. On paper, this seems like a pretty decent effect, especially in older formats like GOAT where hand advantage is really important, and spending a normal summon on this isn't such a big deal. After all, we've seen these sorts of cards being extremely strong in these past formats. Cards like Air Knight Parshath and Don Zalug were very good cards. Similar effects gaining you card advantage when they battled. Thus, it would be logical to imagine that Zombie Tiger could occupy a similar spot in this format. The issue comes when you realize that Zombie Tiger can only equip itself to Decayed Commander, which very severely limits what plays you can make with it. Decayed Commander at least has a decency to summon Zombie Tiger when it hits the field. Still, it can only summon it from your hand, meaning you're forced to play a lot of consistency cards in order to find both of them, since there's no equivalent to a card like Reinforcements of the Army for zombies. To add insult to injury, Decayed Commander's effect is the exact same as Zombie Tiger's equipment effect, meaning that Zombie Tiger doesn't really give you anything you don't already have, just doubles it. And sure, discarding 2 cards from your opponent's hand is very strong, but if the added effect depends on destroying a monster by battle with only 1000 attack, then you can be sure it's not going to go off all that often. And at number 9, we have Des Dendle, a level 4 Earth Plant monster with an effect that allows you, while it's equipped, to summon a Wicked Plant token anytime the equipped monster destroys an opponent's monster. A Wicked Plant token being just a level 1 Earth Plant monster with 800 attack and defense. Now, if you've been keeping up with Yu-Gi-Oh!, since Link monsters are introduced, you'll probably know how summoning tokens is one of the strongest effects a card can have, with cards like Link Cross and Mecha Phantobeast Aurorodon being banned because of how many tokens they created and how easily they made them. And if you think the only reason they're good is because they're easily accessible extra deck monsters, remember that Blackwing, Go for the Vague Shadow, and Dandelion are pretty much unsearchable main deck cards, which are still banned because they can very easily and quickly summon tokens. However, that's not the case with Des Dendle. Summoning just one very small token at the cost of spending your battle phase is simply not worth it, and never has been. Furthermore, this is similar to a card like Zombie Tiger, since you can only equip it to a specific, extremely bad monster, in this case Vampiric Orcus. Vampiric Orcus is an Earth Plant monster, which, like Decayed Commander, can summon Des Dendle directly from your hand, so you at least don't have to wait for the next turn to start your insane Wicked Plant token combo plays. And at number 8, we have Heavy Mech Support Platform. This is a level 3 Dark Machine monster with an effect that lets it equip itself to a machine monster you control in order to increase its attack and defense by 500 points. This has been one of the most boring Union monsters there is. It has a very simple, yet slightly restrictive effect, since it's only able to be equipped to machines. And, well, like you'll see throughout this list, it isn't really worth it to spend a normal summon on a very small attack increase like with this card. Even if this card has been legal for an extremely long time now, being released in 2004's Rise of Destiny set, it has never seen any sort of viable play. Sometimes, however, Konami decides to retrain and re-release older cards with updated effects and some other changes to make them viable in the current game. And they decided to take a shot at this underwhelming union. Released in 2016 structure deck Seto Kaiba, Heavy Mech Support Armor is a level 3 light machine monster with a much better effect that allows you to, when it's normal summoned, special summon one Union monster from your graveyard. Also, if it's equipped as a Union, it prevents your opponent from targeting it with any card effects. All this makes Mecha Heavy Support Armor infinitely better than Platform, being sometimes played in ABC decks since it's searchable with Union Hanger and gives you the ability to revive your ABC pieces to use their effects again. And at number 7, we've got Second Goblin. This is a level 1 Dark Fiend monster which can only be equipped to Giant Orc. And while it's equipped, it grants you the incredibly game-breaking effect of allowing you to change the battle position of the monster it's equipped to. Only once per turn, of course, we don't want it getting too out of hand. Meanwhile, Giant Orc is a level 4 Dark Fiend with an effect that makes it change the defense position if it attacks and makes it so you can't change its battle position until the end of the next turn. This extremely bad effect is there to balance the fact that Giant Orc has a very beefy 2200 attack, which is extremely high for level 4 monster where you can just normal summon with no tributes. Second, Goblin is there to try and remedy this crippling effect, allowing the Orc to change back into attack position way earlier than its effect limits you to. This card has a very similar counterpart in Protective Soul Aelin, which has the same exact effect as Second Goblin, but only works with Indomitable Fighter Lele instead of Giant Orc. However, since Lele has 100 more attack than Orc, it manages to escape this list. Even if Giant Orc is a very mediocre card, it has still seen some sparse play in old GOAT format beatdown decks, since skill drain negates its downside of changing itself to defense position. Still, these decks never managed to become relevant until much later, but by then, Giant Orc was replaced by cards like Malefics or Beast King Barbaros. Second Goblin, however, didn't even get the small moment of recognition and has never been playable in any recognizable capacity. And at number 6, we have a card that actually belongs to an archetype with Vylon Pentachloro. This tongue twister is a level 4 light machine monster with an effect that targets and destroys one card in the field whenever the equipped monster destroys another monster by battle. The main issue with this card is that it can only equip itself to a Vylon, which, as an archetype all about equipping things to their monsters, you'd think would be a great benefit and a standard in all their lists. But that's not the case. You see, union monsters need to be equipped via their own effect in order to do anything at all. So, the regular means of equipment that Vylon use make Pentachloro pretty much worthless, since it would essentially just be a monster with no effect. And for a very, let's just say, not good deck like Vylon, you do have a lot of monsters you'd rather play before adding Pentachloro to your list. Cards like Vylon Cube, Vylon Prism, or even Vylon Sphere are simply not replaceable, so finding room to add these very subpar unions is quite complicated. Funnily enough, both Pentachloro and the other unit's archetype Vylon Tesseract can be searched with a Union Hanger, which gives their deck their own way of tutoring Vylon monsters, because Vylon cards have a lot of ways to search their spells, but not a single in-archetype way of adding any monsters from their deck. Problem is, you'd rather search nothing instead of searching for Vylon Pentachloro. And landing onto number 5, we have Pitch Dark Dragon. This is a level 3 Dark Dragon monster which can only be equipped to Dark Blade and gives it 400 attack and defense and also gives it piercing damage. Dark Blade is just a level 4 Dark Warrior monster with no effect. If you somehow manage to make Dark Blade live one turn with its admittedly fairly decent 1800 attack, you'd be rewarded with an insane 2200 attack body, which also deals piercing damage. Yeah, that's not very strong. If you're that desperate for a monster with piercing, you can just run something like Vylon, which has 200 more attack and would cost you the same amount of resources to bring out. Or even better, you could spend the same resources on summoning any of the original monarchs, like Rise of the Storm Monarch or Caius the Shadow Monarch, which have actually strong effects paired with a decently big body, unlike Dark Blade with Pitch Dark Dragon. All in all, Pitch Dark Dragon is an extremely weak card with an even weaker effect. However, it does have one small redeeming quality, because it's one of the required materials to bring out Dark Blade the Dragon Knight, which, funnily enough, does have the same amount of attack as a Dark Blade equipped with Pitch Dark Dragon, but lacks the ability to deal piercing damage. Still, this makes it possible to be used with cards like Future Fusion and especially Fusion Deployment, with Dark Blade and Pitch Dark Dragon even featuring in the artwork of the latter, explicitly telling you, yeah, this synergy exists. Still, you'd be making a much better use of Fusion Deployment in a deck like Tearlaments to summon Tearlaments Rhinoheart, or Branded to summon Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. But for all my Darkblade fans, don't fret, as this is not the only time he shows up on this list. Keeping with the Darkblade theme, at number 4 we have Kiryu, a level 5 Dark Dragon monster, which, like our last entry, can only be equipped to Dark Blade. However, if you felt Pitch Dark Dragon was underwhelming, get ready. While it's equipped, Kiryu gives Dark Blade a boost of 900 attack and defense, and can be tributed to allow the equipped monster to attack directly. This effect is marginally better than Pitch Dark Dragon. Yes, even if by using its second effect, the monster loses the 900 attack boost, meaning you're only attacking for 1800 damage. What really sets this card back is its level. Asking for one tribute to bring out this monster only to make your Dark Blade slightly larger is plain bad. If you really, truly, actually want your Dark Blade to be slightly larger, let me introduce you to equip spells. And that's all Kiryu really is. An equip spell that makes Dark Blade a little bit bigger, but you can't justify playing it over cards like United We Stand or Mage Power if you really need to give it an attack boost. Even more, there's no fusion that requires this like there was with Dark Blade the Dragon Knight, so there really is no actual reason to run this card at all, unless you're building a pure Dark Blade deck, but I feel like you'd already be setting yourself a disappointment if that's the case. Moving on to number 3, we have a tie with two very similar monsters, Metallizing Parasite Lunatite and Metallizing Parasite Soltite. Stat-wise, these are both level 7 Water Aqua effect monsters with very low attack and defense, and share similar effects. While equipped, Lunatite makes it so the equipped monster is unaffected by spell cards from your opponent, and Soltite makes it unable to be destroyed or targeted by monster effects from your opponent. These effects are not necessarily awful, but staple them on level 7 monsters, which need 2 tributes to be summoned, and you're left with having to spend a total of 4 cards to summon a monster and equip it with either of these Metallizing Parasites. Lunatite is certainly a product of its time, being released all the way back in 2003 Dark Crisis, together with a lot of mediocre generic cards you probably never heard of, like Thousand Needles or Ray of Hope. This was a period of experimentation in the game's development, and as a result, we got cards like Lunatite, which are just extremely awful and have no place in any decent strategy. Soltite, however, was released in Abyss Rising in 2012. Do you know what was also released in Abyss Rising? Madolche Queen Tiramisu, Molan Glacia the Elemental Lord, and a bunch of Mermail and Spellbook cards. This was released at the time when Dino Rabbit was dominating with Evil Sword Dalka, together with both Inzektor and Windups hand looping you, and Konami thought it was the perfect time to print a level 7 Union monster that gives your monster a little bit of protection. Why they'd think the world so desperately needed a counterpart to an unplayable card released over 9 years prior, I have no idea. But now we can at least point at it and laugh. It seems that they really like the Pair of Unions theme because it causes another tie in our second spot, Freezing Beast and Burning Beast. These are both level 4 monsters with 1500 attack and 1000 defense, with Freezing Beast being a Water Aqua and Burning Beast being a Fire Pyro. They can only be equipped to each other, and when they are, they gain an effect to destroy spell or trap cards. Freezing Beast allows the equipped monster to destroy one face-down spell or trap card when it inflicts battle damage, and Burning Beast does the exact same thing but with face-up spell and traps. The fact that these can only be equipped to each other makes their use extremely limited, since you will always need to have both in order for them to do anything at all. Not only that, even if you manage to get one equipped with the other, all you're getting is an extremely mediocre back row removal effect, which only triggers after declaring an attack, meaning they don't allow you to dodge battle traps like Mirror Force or Sakuretsu Armor. Suffice to say, if your opponent has any spell or traps you'd want to destroy, you have a myriad of better ways that don't involve dealing battle damage with a 1500 attack monster. Even when these were released back in 2003 Magician's Force, you had a multitude of better cards that do the same thing they do. Breaker the Magical Warrior just destroys a spell or trap card and leaves you with a monster with more attack, and it was printed in the same set. Just to drive home how much of a disappointment these two beasts are, remember that Magician's Force printed Rival of Warlords, Magical Scientist, Tribe-Infecting Virus, and Kaiser Colosseum, among a lot of other amazing cards. And paragliding onto the first place, we're met with Koitsu, a level 10 Water Fairy monster. Koitsu can only be equipped to Aitsu, and if it's ever equipped, it increases Aitsu's attack by 3000. Aitsu, meanwhile, is a level 5 Fairy Fire monster with no effect and just 100 attack and defense. If you've been a follower for a long time, you might remember this guy from our top 10 worst normal monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh video back in 2018. Not much has changed about these guys' viability in 5 years, however. Picture how you'd summon this guy back when it was released. First, you'd need to summon a monster, next turn, tribute it for Aitsu. Then the next 2 turns, you need to both protect Aitsu and summon 2 other monsters, then summon Koitsu and use his effect. That's a total of 5 turns and 5 monsters that end up with a 3100 attack monster with no effect. If you're that desperate for a big monster, you could just summon Blue Eyes White Dragon for a lot less resources and effort. And even if you manage to bring Koitsu out more easily and quickly, you're still left with a big guy who does nothing more than have a little over 3000 attack. What's even funnier is that this guy was released at the same time as Freezing and Burning Beasts. Just imagine pulling all these awful cards in the same pack. For all these reasons, this is not only the worst Union monster of all time, it's also just one of the worst monsters of all time. Alright, and that's it for the video. If you think I missed any other terrible Unions, or have any ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.